The Pan-Africanist Congress of Azania is a significant political party in South Africa, renowned for its pivotal contributions to the liberation struggle against apartheid. Emerging from the African National Congress in the 1950s, the PAC was created by members who disagreed with the ANC's perspective that the land belongs to all who live in it, both white and black. Instead, the PAC embraced an African nationalist ideology, emphasizing a vision for a South Africa rooted in the principles of Pan-Africanism, in contrast to the non-racial or multiracial policies of other organizations, such as the African National Congress. During the 1940s, an Africanist group led by Anton Lembede, Photlako Lebalo, A.P. Mda, and Robert Sobukwe emerged within the ANC. They wanted South Africa returned to its indigenous inhabitants, Africa for the Africans, and were willing to give equal rights to all races. On 9 April 1959, the PAC of Azania was established when prominent members of the ANC Youth League broke away to form a new movement. Frustrated by ongoing debates regarding the ANC's political approach, particularly as outlined in the Freedom Charter, adopted at the Congress of the People in June 1955, the Freedom Charter was seen by the PAC's founders as a departure from the ANC's 1949 program of action, signaling a shift towards a multiracial policy that undermined their vision for a united African identity. The group broke away from the ANC in 1958 and in April 1959 formed the Pan-Africanist Congress under the leadership of Sobukwe. Key figures in the PAC's inception, including its first president, Robert Mangaliso Sobukwe, had previously worked to invigorate the ANC and led a more assertive resistance against the apartheid regime, while membership in the ANC was limited to individuals classified as Africans by the apartheid government. The ANC collaborated with groups representing other racial communities, leading to multifaceted campaigns for a post-apartheid South Africa. However, the PAC contended that the stance perpetuated the very racial divisions inherent in apartheid. They were also the first in the South African political landscape to promote the concept of non-racialism and put forward that genuine equality will not be possible as long as distinctions between races were acknowledged. Sobukwe argued that there exists only one race, the human race, and condemned multiracialism as merely a form of elevated racism. He believed that to achieve true freedom, Azania, the term adopted by the PAC for South Africa, must transcend racial categorization. In March 1960, the PAC initiated its first significant protest campaign. On March 21, thousands joined leaders including Nyakane Zulu in Sharpeville, Philip Hosana in Cape Town, and Sobukwe in Soweto, converging on police stations nationwide to demand arrest for not carrying passbooks, an oppressive internal passport system controlling the movement of non-white South Africans. Tragically, at Sharpeville, police opened fire on demonstrators, resulting in the death of 69 people, many of whom were shot while trying to flee. This heartbreaking event, known as the Sharpeville Massacre, marked a critical juncture in the anti-apartheid movement. It drew international attention and galvanized global support against the apartheid regime, igniting what became a worldwide campaign for justice and equality. In South Africa, the government enforced a state of emergency and arrested thousands of opposition activists. On 8 April 1960, the South African authorities prohibited both the African National Congress and the Pan-Africanist Congress of Azania, effectively making organized resistance to apartheid illegal. The swift banning of the PAC, only a year after its inception, left the organization in turmoil. Many of its leaders were imprisoned, and others were forced into exile. Unlike the more established ANC-SACP alliance, the young PAC of Azania had not developed adequate plans for clandestine operations before its prohibition, significantly undermining its capacity to function over the subsequent decades. Nevertheless, the ideals of Pan-Africanism continued to ignite the spirit of those opposing apartheid and settler colonialism in South Africa. Beginning in the early 1960s, the Pan-Africanist Congress began to release a variety of publications and journals. One notable magazine from this era is Azanian Combat, which emerged in the mid-1980s as the official publication of the Azanian People's Liberation Army, the military wing of the PAC during the struggle against apartheid. The magazine was produced by APLA's political department, operating from PAC's exiled headquarters in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. The majority of the articles were penned by journalists affiliated with the Dar es Salaam base or from APLA training camps within Azania. However, Azania Combat also featured reports and insights from underground PAC members conducting operations covertly in South Africa, as well as contributions from exiled members at PAC offices around the globe. Many of the journal's articles detailed guerrilla activities undertaken by APLA fighters in South Africa. Moreover, the magazine offered a broader perspective on political undertaking of PAC members, both domestically and internationally, providing a Pan-Africanist commentary on significant political events. Collectively, the issues of Azanian Combat present a valuable look into the operations and political landscape of the PAC of Azania during the critical decade of apartheid. In addition to Azanian Combat, there's also Izwi Lenkululeko, a magazine produced within South Africa by the Pan-Africanist movement in the early 1990s, alongside commentary and reporting on current events in South Africa at the time. The journal also featured numerous articles delving into the history of the PAC of Azania and the broader Pan-Africanist movement on the international stage. Like the ANC, but less successfully, the PAC moved its operations underground and established an external base in Tanzania to bypass its banning in South Africa. Before the PAC was officially banned in 1960, under the direction of Robert Sobukwe, the organization proactively initiated efforts to establish international support. Two prominent members, Nana Muhomo and Peter Mulotsi, were among the first to leave South Africa on the eve of the Sharpeville massacre. Following the ban, the PAC worked to create a network of offices and camps outside the country, establishing its headquarters in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, from 1963 onward. During this time, the PAC set up formal missions designed to represent the organization to various independent African nations. In London, Mahomo joined forces with prominent figures like the ANC's Oliver Tambo and members of the Southwest African People's Organization to form the South African United Front. The London PAC office began operations in 1962, but initially functioned independently from the leadership in Southern Africa. It wasn't until 1977 that the office formally aligned with the PAC headquarters in Tanzania. In early 1977, Sobukwe fell ill and applied for permission to receive medical treatment. His request was denied indefinitely until the intervention of his friend, Benjamin Pogrund. Subsequently, in September 1977, Sobukwe traveled to Johannesburg, where he was diagnosed with lung cancer and then transferred to a hospital in Cape Town. Although the South African government granted Sobukwe access to treatment, they imposed strict conditions on his travel. Sobukwe was required to report to a police station every time he left Kimberley or arrived at the hospital. He died from complications of lung cancer on 27 February 1978 and was buried on 11 March the same year. The London office played a crucial role in several key areas: fundraising from international supporters, collaborating with anti-apartheid solidarity groups, and coordinating the political efforts of exiled PAC members residing in the UK. Documents that highlight the PAC's political activities in the UK and their collaborative efforts with British anti-apartheid campaigners surfaced. In August 1992, the UK branch organized a public meeting to protest the Boipatong massacre, where 45 residents of Boipatong Township were brutally killed by supporters of the Inkatha Freedom Party, backed by South African security forces. Later that year, PAC members in the UK collaborated with the City of London Anti-Apartheid Group and others to organize protests against the South African Springboks rugby team's tour of the UK, violating the UN sports boycott. Correspondence from the City of London Anti-Apartheid Group indicates their commitment to providing logistical support for PAC members participating in these protests. The relationship between grassroots members in Africa and leaders based in the UK and USA was often fraught with tensions, with some members accusing the latter of leading comfortable lives disconnected from the harsh realities faced by exiles in Africa. A letter from Nomvo Boy, Secretary for Health and Social Welfare of the PAC in Dar es Salaam, emphasizes the urgent need for assistance to provide clothing and food to 56 recent arrivals from South Africa. While exiled PAC members in Europe enjoyed slightly better living conditions, they still faced significant financial challenges and frequent harassment from British immigration authorities, as illustrated by a note detailing a conversation with Hamilton Keke, a former chief representative of the PAC in London. When the South African government lifted the ban on the PAC in February 1990, the organization faced the immediate challenge of reconnecting with supporters inside South Africa and its exiled leadership around the world. In March 1990, a special meeting convened in Harare brought together exiled leaders and South African supporters of the Pan-Africanist movement. A speech by PAC President Zef Muthupeng, who had been recently released from Robben Island during this consultative meeting, underscored the complexities they encountered during this transitional period. As the PAC prepared for a special congress within South Africa after the ban in October 1990, the UK branch reached out to British anti-apartheid supporters for financial help to send delegates to the conference. On paper, the prominent anti-apartheid movement in the UK appeared to support the PAC of Azania. However, in practice, their focus leaned more toward collaboration with the African National Congress and SWAPO of Namibia. As a result, members of the PAC in the UK had to engage with smaller anti-apartheid organizations to raise funds and amplify their political message to a broader audience. The notes from two meetings held in March 1988 between the PAC and British activists shed light on the alternative support networks established by the PAC in the UK. Representing the PAC was Gora Ibrahim, the Secretary for Foreign Affairs, alongside two additional members based in the UK. The gathering also included representatives from the Black Consciousness Movement of Azania and SWANU from Namibia. British activists present were from groups such as the City of London Anti-Apartheid Group, the Revolutionary Communist Group, BALSA, Black Action for the Liberation of Southern Africa, and the All Africans People Revolutionary Party. The first meeting occurred on the heels of a significant public event where the same groups had united to commemorate the tragic killing of 69 PAC supporters during the Sharpeville massacre on March 21, 1960. These discussions focused on practical strategies for collaboration, including a campaign demanding the release of PAC leader Zef Mutupeng, fundraising efforts, and raising awareness of the PAC's calls for action from the Commonwealth. Documents highlighting the growing relationship between the PAC and the City of London anti-apartheid group surfaced. One document is a letter from Cora Ibrahim inviting the City of London anti-apartheid group to send an official observer to the PAC of Azania's first national conference in South Africa in 30 years, scheduled for October 1990. The second letter, building on the ties strengthened by British activist participation in the conference, features a speech given by PAC President Clarence Makwethu at a Heroes Day event in South Africa on August 1, 1992. In his address, Makwethu outlines the history of the PAC, the sacrifices made by its members in the fight against apartheid, and the ongoing violence affecting the black majority at that time. The speech also addresses concerns regarding the CODESA negotiations, which were aimed at ending apartheid and paving the way for democratic elections. A handwritten note from senior PAC leader Waters Toboti, accompanying the fax requests that the City Group Office ensures the speech text reaches the PAC's chief representative in London. This indicates that the PAC's London office was likely under-resourced and somewhat inactive, while also highlighting the evolution of the City Group from a mere support entity to a more integral part of the PAC's political and diplomatic efforts in the UK. In the late 1980s, as the prospect of dismantling apartheid became increasingly apparent, the Pan-Africanist Congress embarked on a mission to revive and expand the Pan-Africanist movement within South Africa. In December 1989, they inaugurated the Pan-Africanist movement aimed at energizing their supporters. The Declaration of the Pan-Africanist Movement to the People of Azania, released at PAM's launch, articulated a Pan-Africanist perspective on settler colonialism in South Africa and outlined the PAC's vision for a decolonized Azania. Following the lifting of the ban on the PAC by the South African government in February 1990, the organization encountered both the opportunity and the challenge of engaging in open, legal political activities under their name for the first time in 3 decades. In December 1990, they convened their first legal national conference in South Africa since the PAC's founding in April 1959. Delegates, many returning from exile for the first time, gathered from across Africa and the globe to participate. A select group of international observers from solidarity organizations was also invited. The documents from this conference include the opening address by Clarence Makwethu, the acting president of the PAC. They encompass discussions centered on the PAC's commitment to collaborate with other anti-apartheid groups in a united front, their proposed program of action, and their stance on negotiations with the apartheid government regarding South Africa's future. Additional motions urged the international community to sustain economic sanctions and cultural boycotts against South Africa. Among these documents is a handwritten message of solidarity presented by Andre Scott, an observer from the City of London anti-apartheid group. During the 1980s, the PAC's militant Africanism was overshadowed by the ANC and the United Democratic Front's more practical non-racial politics. However, after the unbanning of both the ANC and the PAC, the aggressively anti-white posture of the PAC's military wing, now named the Azanian People's Liberation Army, APLA, with its slogan of "One Settler, One Bullet," became popular. The APLA perpetrated several massacres between 1991 and 1994 including killings in a pub and a church in Cape Town. In July 1991, the PAC's Department of Publicity and Information released a statement outlining the organization's ideals for a democratic Azania. They advocated for a constituent assembly elected by proportional representation to draft a constitution for a post-apartheid democratic South Africa. The document articulated the PAC's vision for a future constitution, asserting that it should safeguard the human rights of all South Africans. It reiterated the PAC's long-standing commitment to principles such as self-determination and non-racialism, and the restitution of land to those dispossessed, and establishment of an African democracy that prioritizes human rights over minority interests. This approach aimed to ensure the protection of the human rights of white South Africans without granting them undue political leverage or a veto over future policies. The PAC's aspirations included pursuing a foreign policy centered around Pan-Africanism and continental government that remained independent of both Western influence and the disintegrating Soviet bloc. In November 1992, the Pan-Africanist Congress released a pivotal statement titled Whither Azania? This document tackled three critical issues confronting South Africa at the time. First, it highlighted the ongoing communal violence among various ethnic and political factions, violence that was largely fueled by agents of the apartheid security police, later identified as part of a so-called third force. Second, it addressed the PAC's perspective on the bilateral negotiations between the government and the African National Congress, negotiations that were paving the way toward democratic elections. Lastly, the statement acknowledged the roles of international bodies such as the United Nations, the Commonwealth, the European Union, and the Organization of African Unity in these negotiations. In reaffirming its commitment to a democratic future, the PAC of Azania emphasized the necessity of electing a constituent assembly, tasked with drafting a new South African constitution. They also advocated for the establishment of a transitional authority to oversee government functions until a democratically elected government could be formed. The PAC's vision for this constituent assembly is detailed in the document, which is based on a press conference held in London on March 28, 1991. This event featured a senior delegation from the PAC, including President Clarence Makwethu, along with Barney Dessia, Gora Ibrahim, and Patricia De Lille. In 1989, marking the PAC of Azania's 30th anniversary, the organization published a concise pamphlet outlining the principles of its political ideology. In the late 1960s, the PAC adopted Azania as its preferred name for a future decolonized South Africa. The document emphasizes key aspects of the PAC of Azania's vision and Pan-Africanism. The struggle in South Africa is intertwined with the broader movement across the continent aimed at restoring effective control of land to African people. The land of the Azanian people was forcibly taken by imperialist invaders, and its wealth continued to be exploited for the benefit of a privileged few. The PAC insists that the African people's inalienable right to their land is non-negotiable, and that is their solemn responsibility to reclaim their land and its resources using all available means. The PAC of Azania holds that there is only one race, the human race. Consequently, in their understanding, race does not have a plural form. The concept of race has historically been used by imperialists and colonizers to justify the inhumane exploitation of indigenous peoples in Africa. The PAC asserts that the doctrine of white supremacy emerges from these fallacies, championing a government for Africans, by Africans, and of Africans, where an individual loyal to Africa and supportive of the democratic rule of its majority qualifies as an African. The PAC opposes multiracialism, arguing that the history of South Africa has entrenched prejudices and hostilities. If the nation were to maintain group exclusivity under the guise of multiracialism, it will only perpetuate these antagonisms into a new era. They consider multiracialism to be a concession to European arrogance designed to protect white interests, regardless of demographic realities, fundamentally undermining democracy. The organization believes that the white minority can only sustain its dominance by refining methods of control that enlist the cooperation of the oppressed. Hence, they advocate for a policy of non-collaboration. Economically, the PAC envisions a planned economy with equitable distribution of wealth, firmly rejecting the exploitation of the many for the benefit of a select few. Regarding international relations, the PAC of Azania promotes a stance of positive neutrality, choosing not to align with either of the existing blocs during the global Cold War. They support the idea that Azania should be independent in all things, but neutral to none that affect the destiny of Africa, favoring non-alignment as their guiding principle. Quarrels amongst PAC leaders, disunity as to objectives. Notably, Lebalo wished to use Lesotho instead of Tanzania as a base for armed struggle against South Africa, and failure to win widespread international support led to the decline in support for the PAC within South Africa. Also having a negative impact on PAC operations was the weakened and sometimes unclear leadership that existed during its banning. Lebalo claimed to be acting president in 1963, although he was constantly engaged in a power struggle with other party leaders and was eventually expelled from the organization in 1979. Vusi Muzimake then briefly led the organization until 1981, when he stepped down in favor of John Pokela, who served until his death in 1985. Some stability returned when Zef Mutupeng was elected president of the PAC in 1986. He would lead the organization until 1990. The Pan-Africanist Congress has faced significant internal conflicts and frequent leadership changes since it transitioned into a formal political party. The turmoil began as early as 1996 when Clarence Makwetu was ousted for bringing the party into disrepute after leading the organization during the 1994 elections.